Hello, hello, everybody. How are we doing out there? Let's get this up on here. Coming at you folks live tonight, Market Mondays. Blair Nightingale here. If you guys have never been with us before, every Monday night, 6 p.m., right here, Central Time on YouTube, we are coming at you. Got lots of stuff to cover tonight. Lots of stuff to cover tonight. Coming at you actually from New York City today. New York City. Never know where I'm going to end up these days. Got to be honest. Kind of amazing. Uh, right in the heart of the financial markets right here. So appreciate having you guys on here. As always, if you are a first time viewer, you can always comment right over here in the comment box right on this side for me. You can leave your name, comment, question, anything you guys might want to know as we go along. It can be regarding what I'm referring to, teaching about, talking about, or it can be something else entirely, something totally different. We've got folks here from YouTube, we've got folks here from Facebook. So, whichever one you are joining us from, please feel free to drop a hello, a comment, where you're from. Maybe you've never even been on here before. We are Tradeway. Tradeway's goal is to break down the confusing world of finance for folks that aren't in finance, right? That there is a Main Street versus Wall Street elite. There's this divide, and they like it that way. Well, we aim to break down that divide. Just got to make one. Make sure everybody can hear me. Um, they like it that way, and that's not what we are all about, right? We want to break down those barriers. So tonight I'm going to give you an update and go through what we're looking at in two ways we look at this. The first one is technically means we're going to look at the price of the S&P 500, some of the indexes, a specific stock that I want to teach you something from tonight so that you can begin to see how traders are going to break that information down so that it's less confusing and it gives you the ability to understand how we can make some decisions when we're making investments. The second thing is that we're going to look fundamentally because this week is a lot of pivotal news. Okay. We've been in a bear market recently. We're in what we call the Fed has us in a rate hike part of the cycle, meaning they're raising interest rates. I've talked about that here every time, which is exactly why I bring it up tonight, because of course, every time we're looking at the markets, that's the main news item. It's not really anything else. It's really just that. I highlight that not so you and I can learn a ton of what we call macro or microeconomic mumbo jumbo. It all has its place. But here at Tradeway, we really don't need to know that. Okay. We just need to know there's going to be one or two main narratives, main news items that are driving the market mood, positive or negative. And in this case, it's really interest rates. Okay. Now, interest rates are going up because of inflation. So we're going to have to watch news on inflation, right? For traders, it's actually really important. And it's applicable in something as simple as this. I want to know whenever there's going to be an event around inflation in the markets so that if I'm active in any sort of way, okay, we're on the trading side here, we're not so much on the long-term investment side, then I am aware. I'm simply aware. It's not really a whole lot more than that. I just need to be aware of the things that are happening. So Market Monday is a place for you to come check in the week and go, hey, what do I need to be aware of this week as I'm looking at positions I'm already in? You may have some longer term stuff. Some of our students out there, you guys are doing short term. It may only be a few days. Some of you guys are doing 30 to 60 day positions. So it depends on what you're doing. But in either of those time frames, it's important to know what's happening. So we're going to check in tonight. and look at what is happening. So first things first, guys, you see it right here on the screen. We're looking at the S&P 500. So we begin to break out of this trend, right? We break out of this trend. We move down into here. We've made these two bottoms right here. And then we pulled up into what? Well, let me zoom this in. Okay. This is something I want you to be really aware of. I just mentioned being aware of something that's driving the news. Well, here's something that's really driving the price. Notice the 50-day moving average right here, that blue line right there. That's the 50-day moving average. If you're not familiar with what that is, obviously this will be a new concept. If you are familiar with what that is, you probably know how important it can be. When the 50-day moving average comes into play, traders pay attention. Okay, they pay attention. The 10, the 20, the 50. Okay, there are others. It's not a magic line that means the stock always has to bounce up or down off it. But again, it's something we're always paying attention to. Okay, we're paying attention to this technically. And if you listen to any of the coaches last week, you would have heard all of them talking. This day here was Wednesday. I was on a live trading hour with our students, the last hour of the trading day, looking at this particular day here, because obviously we had a slight gap down, a big move down into the 50-day moving average area. And then it came up and actually closed above the 20. Okay. The next day saw a gap down, but it holds. Okay. One of my reports that I released on Thursday just said, hey guys, we're in the 50-day moving average area. This is a battleground, okay? It's an important level. It's almost always somewhat of an important level. And as it was bouncing up and down that day, wait to see some conviction in the direction of the index to see what you really want to do so that you're sinking some kind of movement. Again, depends on the strategy you're doing, but really looking for some kind of pattern here. We've got to move in that area. Now, of course, now we can look back and see that it confirmed in there, but having it there early in the day, it was right on that line. So that might have given us an indication to say, you know what, I'm just going to be patient. I'm going to be patient. And if this thing begins to push above the 50-day moving average and I'm finding something else that is fitting my criteria for entering a position, then I'd be willing to look at that. Okay. Well, if you go over to something like this that day, it's the same thing. Let's just take a look here. Okay. That's a little too close of a zoom. I can shrink this down, give us some more runway there. You'll notice 50-day, 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 and then right here, which is the same day I was just showing on the S&P. So if I actually shrink this down, in fact, I'm going to zoom back out again. Shrink it down, give us a much broader view. What I can do with this thing is I can come in here like this, and I'm simply just going to drop a line right along those bottoms, right around the what? Around the 50-day moving average. And actually, when I reset the zoom, you'll notice it was resistance back here on the left side of the chart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And then it becomes support, right? It recovers, gets above it. And now we've actually got 1, not quite 2, but it puts in a low here, pretty close to that 50-day, 3, and there's 4 right there for a nice follow through. So when you're over here on the S&P and you go, all right, it's moving back above that second day in a row, it's holding at the 50, I'm getting some positive move above that level. Now I'm connecting it to an actual stock, a position out there that I may want to do something on where it's also holding clean above the 50-day moving average, putting in a higher high, making a nice push. Amazon's a great company. Amazon's a great stock, very highly liquid, great options. So that's something that you could really have watched at that particular point in time and said, okay, this thing is actually looking like it could make a new push up into what? Up into the previous high, which is exactly what it did today, right? A lot of these uptrends will make moves up into those previous highs. Of course, there's no guarantee that that will happen, okay? It doesn't always do that, but good uptrends often do that. That's the definition of an uptrend. So it pushes up into that previous high, that gap that we saw off of earnings last month. and you get a pretty nice position there. So that is not only what we see happening in the index, number one, but how we connect that to a specific stock that we may be looking at. It's really important that we understand how market tone is a rising or a lowering tide, but we don't get too caught up in it being some sort of a predictive element, right? It doesn't tell us what the future is. That's not the point. That's not the goal. What it is something that tells us whether or not we're going to be entering into a position in an environment where the market is showing continual selling below a key level or resilient buying above a key level. Being above the 50-day moving average gave us resilient buying above the 50-day moving average, then connecting to a position on Amazon, a great stock that can perform very well in an uptrend at its 50-day moving average and then performing really nicely. So that's how we're pulling those two things together on a chart like that. As we learn to put those pieces together more and more and more, we have eyes to see certain opportunities like that. Now, obviously from there, we've got to go and place good risk return, money management, stop out rules, all kinds of things like that in place. And again, you might be doing a directional strategy. You may not. Okay. You may actually be using a more advanced option strategy where you're actually getting a significantly lower potential return than if you had bought a call option, for example, on a stock like that. But you could significantly increase the probabilities of profit in that position, right? This is a favored approach by professional option traders using something like a credit spread or something of that nature to take advantage of something, but doing it in a less directional, higher probability format, right? We've done an options preview right here on Tradeway TV, Market Monday. So if you go back in the library right here on YouTube, you'll be able to see that we did that last year and went through a lot of foundational option strategies to give you an idea. Maybe you've never heard of an option. You don't even really know what that is. How do people use them? What do they do? How do they work? How do we manage risk? Are they safe? All those kinds of things we went over to give you a preview, if you will, of how that works. Now, the second thing I said that we're going to do is move from the technical, which is what we love as traders, right? We really love looking at those technicals. We don't only look at the technicals. And I just mentioned two pieces of that to you in this opening segment where we're looking at the technical price, but we're also looking at a greater mood of the market that is indicated by what's happening in the major indexes. Okay. But from there, I'm actually going to drop this in the comment on YouTube, Facebook, friends. You'll see that coming through right there. There is a good resource that I just sent to you right there. And this is a calendar. It's an economic calendar. Now, you're going to see a lot of data on that page, but this is a really good resource to go to and see where we can find what's the big news items coming up. Now, there's a bunch of them on there. So I want to pare that down for you and just give you a couple that are coming up this week because I'm going to call this a noisy week for this kind of stuff that you'll just want to have, as I mentioned in the open, to be ahead of it. Okay. You just want to know these kinds of things are coming. The last thing you want to be doing is going out there and being in a position and there's a big news item that comes out and you go, you know what? I actually didn't know that was even happening this week. How come Blair didn't mention that? That would have been helpful. Well, we're going to mention that. There's really three this week, okay, that are really important off of that schedule. You have what I mentioned in the beginning was that rising inflation, okay, which has actually been coming down now for some time, but it's still a lot higher than the target that the Fed really has for that. So the main gauge that they've been watching is what we call CPI and the PPI, okay? Those are two inflation gauges that the government will report on, and they're going to tell us what that looked like from August. Now, really the main difference between the two is that there's a consumer price index, and then the other is on the producer side. All we really need to know is that the market will be paying attention to both of those to see, are we trending down or are we going back up, right? Is inflation going back up? Most people are expecting it to continue to trend down. It's just that we've seen oil prices start to rise. Okay. In fact, I'm going to show you over here on the chart. If you look at we'll do this. Let's go to the energy ETF here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Let's go a little further than that. I'll show you a 3-year view. Okay. So you'll notice right here, okay, right where my crosshair is, that's June of 22 when things got really high, right? They went really, really high, pushed higher again, and then they've come down for some time. Okay. Well, look where we are now. Okay. We're right back in that area. When oil and gas really gets expensive again, this can really turn up the heat on inflation, because you think about how we use energy to ship and produce just about anything. Okay. So it can really be a catalyst to drive prices that are beyond the strict energy prices, right? Because it's not just you and I paying at the pump. That's true, but it's also airline tickets. It's also trucking. It's also producing products. It's all kinds of things. So this could actually begin to hold up inflation prices a little bit, which is important because if the markets are really watching the Fed to see if they're going to continue to raise rates or they're going to pause for the rest of the year, which Wall Street would love to see, then you can bet that if prices begin to go up again, right, based on oil and gas, you may see some changes in that inflation gauge, not rolling off as much as they would like to see, in which case you may see the Fed talk big about raising rates even more. That will be something that we can watch to see what the ramifications are further down the line. For you and I tonight, really all we got to know is that these are coming up this week, okay? Wednesday morning, 8:30. Okay, so this is Eastern time. Thursday, 8:30, you're going to get the CPI, the PPI. So the open of the market is definitely going to be impacted by both of those things. You've also got jobless claims. I've just mentioned, and I'll say this quickly, the thing that a lot of people have thought that our economy and the stock market was going to do a lot worse by the end of this year. And it actually hasn't. A lot of the bears have been disappointed that it didn't go down as much as it is. Okay, a lot of the big investment banks have changed their tune to say, you know what, we're actually not expecting it quite the way we were at the start of 2023. But I think one of the things that is still a consensus is that we're not out of the woods just yet. Okay. I find it very interesting. Somebody like Michael Burry, some of you may recognize that name, who was somebody who profited tremendously off of the 2008 financial crisis, just bought a significant amount, I think almost $3 billion in put options on the index ETFs, both the SPY and the QQQs, or what we call the Qs. It's the NASDAQ ETF that you can buy put options on. Some of you are thinking, Blair, you just started speaking Greek. What this is just an option instrument where the money in the option is made when the stock goes down. The security loses value, the put option gains in value. And he bought billions and billions of dollars, effectively betting against the US economy, once again, in a significant way. Now, whether he is hedging a position that he already owns or not, I don't honestly fully know the ins and outs of the details of that. But I did hear that. So there is a mixed bag out there as to where we are really going. There's no doubt that there are some huge question marks as to where the economy is heading over the next 6, 12, 18 months. And I'm going to say here on Market Monday, we are definitely not out of the woods yet. But for this week, we've got to watch that inflation gauge both on Wednesday and on Thursday. And if jobs start to really shrink, if we really saw an impact happening in the jobs market, which we just haven't really seen in a significant way yet, it's been very robust. That's really kept us back from from the kind of deterioration that some people thought that we would see in our economy. So should people out there be afraid? Sometimes people ask me that, should I be afraid? Should I be really concerned? Well, I never want to stoke fear. That's never our goal here at Tradeway. We want to stoke wisdom, preparation, knowledge, understanding how things work, how to prepare. By the way, people use those put options I just mentioned to protect the assets that they already have if they continue to have exposure to the markets. It's an insurance policy. That's literally exactly what a put option is. So what I tell people is we just want to, once again, be aware. We want to be aware of what's happening, okay? We're not predicting that things will drop off the cliff tomorrow, but it's good for everyday Americans like you and me to understand the state of the economy, where things are going. The market always will move in cycles. It doesn't stay up forever. It doesn't go up forever. That's just not reality. So we have to understand how these cycles work and what to do when different stages of those cycles come into play. Okay, so when we look at the S&P, once again, back here, we've had this tremendous recovery. I actually was just doing some research earlier today, looking at the markets. We've seen pretty significant bear market bounces. Okay, typically they're not as big as this one is here. This is we had a 22% drop. Okay, on the S&P from the highs to the low here, and we're up. We were within shooting distance of that. Okay, not too long ago. So this is a significant move up, but still not looking like out of the woods just yet. So it's important that you still learn to understand the season of the market, the cycles of the market, how to take advantage of market recessions, declines, drops, because what happens in those times, stock prices get cheap. Something good to prepare yourself for ahead of time. They may not happen tomorrow, they may not happen next month, but they always do happen again. And that's a great time to have preparation and understand what to do. At the same time, how do you protect what you already have? Okay. If you've never taken our step 1 course to go out, learn the basics of how we put this together, what are options, what can they do for us, you can head on over to tradeway.com. And from there, you'll be able to sign up for our step 1 Start Your Journey course, where we teach all of this stuff and giving you exposure on options to just show you just what is an option, how does it work? And then we go from there to show you how you can learn how to really use those. But ultimately, having the foundation of our system comes in that step 1 Start Your Journey course. That's a really great place for you to start and learn. I'm just looking at a comment here in the comment box. Joseph is saying, yes, he cut the leases in Alaska, referring specifically to the anti-energy policy, which is so prevalent in the federal government today. It's also other governments around the world. Now, you remember, it wasn't too long ago, we had, for the first time ever, energy independence here in the United States. Well, we have most certainly lost that independence in our economically speaking. We've lost that energy independence, and we are purchasing it from other places around the world as well. Geopolitically, there's a whole, let's just say, ball of wax to that. Why would you be dependent on other countries when you could be independent and support your own country? That would be my question. Not sure as to why, other than some of the environmental doomsday talk that I hear, but I digress. Other countries around the world have also cut output. Okay, when there's more barrels being released into the markets, obviously that's going to bring the price of that commodity down. Well, they've dialed back. Other countries, OPEC, for example, you can look that up, OPEC, has said we're going to cut barrel production until at least the end of the year. Well, that's going to drive oil prices up. Less supply, more demand, more cost. Okay, and we have to pay that cost since we're buying that oil from other nations. Now, we're not only buying it from OPEC, but we are buying it from nations around the world. And yes, with some major pipelines being abandoned and cut and things like that, it's only going to make it more difficult. The U.S. economy is not at a place, the U.S. infrastructure is not at a place where we can go fully renewable green energy. It's just not going to work that way. By the way, you know what? I digress. I was going to go down a rabbit hole of being in a home in Texas in February of 2021, where a lot of so-called renewable energy failed. And we were without power in a snowstorm for quite some time. Well, the gas generator, I can tell you, ran the house really, really well. So thank goodness for the gas generator. But that said, you're correct, Robert. There was cuts, and there's ramifications for that. There's ramifications for that. Full steam ahead without any regard to how this is all going to affect the economy. To just say there's some environmental crusade and by all costs it needs to be achieved. Well, there's consequences to that. Extremism on any end is it's like a balloon. You squeeze one part of it and it's just going to pop out in another way, sometimes in unexpected ways, which also, by the way, is why we're watching CPI. We'll see how that happens, how that plays out, raising rates in the way that they have. It's going to have an effect on the markets, and it's going to have effect on the overall economy. It's certainly had effect on the banks. We've talked about that at length here on Market Monday. Well, everybody, I appreciate you. We had a great group on here tonight. I gave you two major things tonight. Two major things. What's happening in the price? How do you and I tie the mood, with a specific stock to start to make better decisions about what we're doing in our trades? Don't forget the 50-day, 10-day, 20-day moving average is very, very helpful. The second thing was, overall, there's basically one main news item. It's the Fed, it's interest rates. But inflation is the main number that's giving them a red light or a green light on raising them even further. So we're going to watch that. We're going to watch that this week and see what happens with that. So open positions on Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, depending on what happens, definitely more susceptible to gaps, things like that. So it's an increased volatility. You want to be aware of that. Okay. With that said, hey, that's what we do here on Market Monday. Let's break it down, get some of the confusion out of it, get ready for the week ahead. If you guys need anything, remember, you can always reach out, support@tradeway.com, and you can send your questions, comments, concerns, maybe something you want to cover on an episode at a later date. I'd be happy to do that. So please send that on over. Again, that's support@tradeway.com, and you can let us know. Appreciate each and every one of you. We just want to say, as we sign off tonight, to the families, to those affected, near and far here in this amazing country on this anniversary of September 11th. I was at the memorial today, and the families that were there, the families that weren't there, just pray for them tonight, honor them, bless them, ask that the Lord would just be with them, surround them, continue to comfort them. And for those of you at home who remember, I know that you remember exactly where you were when you heard. And the world is a very, very different place 22 years later. And I just pray for you tonight too, and my family, that the Lord would just give us vision for this great country, and he would stretch his hand over it, and he would redeem it, and he would unite us once again. That would be my prayer, that he would unite us once again. And with that said, thank you guys for being here. Appreciate each and every one of you. And we will see you next week, same time. Good evening. Good night.